Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brandy M Miller, and I am the author of a children's book that is really designed to help children who have dealt with special traumas or abuse or bullying at school come to and figure out how to deal with that in an appropriate manner and how to process those emotions. This might not be for everybody, and I encourage you to listen and watch the video and decide whether this book is for your child or not. We're going to be presenting the girls' version. I did two versions of the book. The first version is Lucy the Candle, and it is for girls. And the second version is Lucas the Candle, which is for boys. And the reason I did one for girls and one for boys is something I learned during elementary education classes, is that children gravitate toward images that reflect their gender. And they think that if it has like a boy on the cover, that it's not for them if they're a girl. And they'll think it's not for them if there's a girl on the cover when they're a boy. So to deal with that issue, we created two different versions. It's really the same book. I'm going to be reading today the Lucy the Candle book. Okay, and I'm going to share my screen so you can see the images as we go along. Lucy the Candle, a story about the power of forgiving. Copyright 2020, Brandy M Miller, published by Chosen Pen Publications. All rights reserved. Dedication. Thank you to Norma McLaughlin, who inspired the story, and dedicated with great love to Mia Jane Miller, Hayden McLaughlin, and to all those who experience darkness in their lives. May this story encourage you not to let darkness extinguish your light or to stop you from spreading goodness into the world for as long as you live. Lucy the Candle sat alone and afraid. She was the smallest candle in the box, and nobody ever picked her when they came to get a candle. She was rolled into the corner and couldn't get back to the other candles. While she was sitting there, waiting to be chosen, darkness surrounded her. It whispered to her, "Lucy, you're too weak and too small. Nobody wants you at all." Lucy hated what darkness said to her. She hated the way that darkness made her feel. "Go away, darkness," she begged. The more she tried to escape darkness, the closer darkness came. It would wrap itself around her until its voice became all that Lucy could hear. The other candles said nothing. They were too afraid of darkness to stand up to it. They didn't want darkness to come after them, too. One by one, the other candles near Lucy were taken away until Lucy was the only candle left. Darkness laughed as it watched the last candle leaving. "You're all alone now, Lucy. No one will ever come for you. They will forget you're here." Lucy didn't want to believe darkness. "It's not true," she said. But in her heart, she worried that darkness was right. Maybe they would forget her. "You're too small and too weak. You can never beat me. You'll never be able to get rid of me," darkness hissed into her ear. Lucy raised her tiny arms to her ears and closed them off tight. "You're wrong. You're wrong. I know you're wrong." She said those words, but in her heart there was a doubt. Was darkness right? Would she be trapped and helpless forever? She sent up a prayer to God. "Lord, help me defeat darkness. Don't let me be forgotten." Every day for the next week, she spoke the same words to God. "Dear Lord, help me defeat the darkness." On the first day of the next week, she started to pray those same words, but stopped. Those words didn't feel right anymore. She prayed again, but this time she changed things just a little. "Dear Lord, Help me to be strong. Help me to be more like you. And just as darkness was closing in on her once again, a hand reached into the box, and she found herself being pulled out. Her heart sang. She was not forgotten. She was placed in the center of a hill of wax. Everywhere around her were small nubs of burnt-up wick. Lucy gasped in horror. Was this what had become of her fellow candles? Was this the fate she was about to meet? A voice inside her spoke. Be not afraid, Lucy. I'm going to help you to be strong. I'm going to help you to become more like me. And with that, she heard a noise like a snake hissing, and a light began to shine. Darkness, which had followed her out of the box, pulled away from the light. Lucy was amazed. She'd never seen anything stop darkness. The light came closer and closer to her until it touched the top of her head. Lucy screamed in pain. My head is on fire, Lord. Why have you let this happen to me? Tears of wax rolled down Lucy's face as the fire continued to burn. But the Lord did not answer. Lucy cried. She cried so much harder than she had ever cried when darkness was taunting her and bullying her. In her misery, she almost wished she could go back into the safety of the box. Darkness only hurt her heart. This hurt everything. Thinking about darkness, she looked around for it, afraid that it would soon come back to bully her, for she felt smaller and weaker than ever. Instead, darkness was huddled in a corner, far away from her. In the light, darkness didn't look as big as it had seemed in the box. It seemed to shrink almost to nothing. Darkness paced back and forth, as if trapped in a cage. Could it be that darkness was afraid of the light? Here I am, darkness. I'm still small and weak and all alone. Why don't you come near? Darkness frowned and turned away. I can't. I don't want to. That light in you, it burns me. Lucy's eyes widened. She'd prayed to defeat darkness. Here she was, defeating darkness with the very thing that hurt her most. Her pain was her power. Pity for darkness filled her heart. You seemed so strong, but you were weak all along. All it took was a little light and a little pain to show me how small you are. Darkness sat and hung his head. I was afraid you would leave me, just like all the others did. I thought if I convinced you of how small you were, you wouldn't notice how small I was, and you would stay. Lucy shook her head. She was sad now to learn this so late. We were both alone and afraid. You could have been my friend. Why did you choose to hurt me instead of being kind? Darkness thought for a moment. I wanted to be kind, but I was afraid you would think I was weak, and then you wouldn't respect me. I was afraid if you knew the truth, you would hurt me. Lucy looked at her hands. It isn't weak to be kind. It's harder to be kind when you're hurting, but that is what makes someone strong. A thought occurred to her just then. She'd asked the Lord to make her strong. The pain was giving her the chance to be kind when she was hurting. The light that was causing her so much grief was God's answer to her own prayer. Lucy burned all through the day and all through the night. She was hurting and in pain. She was losing wax too quickly. She knew it wouldn't be long. This time, she did not complain. Instead, she said, Lord, thank you for the opportunity to see the truth about darkness. Thank you for teaching me to be strong. Please help me to be more like you. She spoke to darkness. You don't have to be afraid. I can't promise I won't hurt you. I won't put out my light, but we can share this time together. and you won't have to be alone. Darkness snarled from its corner. I don't want to hurt. I don't want the pain. I'd rather stay over here and be alone. Lucy didn't give up on darkness. She thought maybe she could get through. The pain doesn't feel good, but I have found it gives me power. Darkness shook its head and looked away. You don't look powerful to me. Surely if you were powerful, you wouldn't hurt at all. Lucy thought about that. It is the pain I feel today that helped me to understand your pain. I'm grateful for the pain. Because of it, we can be friends. Darkness did not say anything for a very long time. Lucy was growing smaller by the minute. She knew her time was near. Soon her light would fade, and she would join the small stubs of blackened wick that clung to the hill of wax at her feet. When the last bit of wax was dripping from her, she gave Darkness one final gift. I'm sorry I couldn't stay. I'm sorry to leave you alone. I forgive you for all that you did to me. You are the reason I became who I am. It's time for me to go now. It's time for me to go home. And with that, Lucy's flame sputtered out, and Darkness was once again alone. It wept the tears of sadness it couldn't shed in the light, and wished it had the courage to have reached out for Lucy's hand. Lucy went up to heaven and gave God a great big hug. Thank you for helping me to be like you. Thank you for teaching me to love. Lucy took her place as a star in the heavens that day. She shines for all to see. Her friend, Darkness, is always with her. The two are never apart. It is only in the darkness that Lucy's light shines its brightest. Lucy discovered her greatest power, the thing that made her shine, was the love that lived in her heart and that darkness could not devour. When darkness surrounds you and you feel small and scared, remember that Lucy still shines above. Let Lucy's light remind you to pray for the strength and the courage to love. The end. Thank you for listening and thank you for sharing this. I sincerely hope you get very good things out of it. And if you decide to purchase a copy for your child, there is a coloring book version that can go with it, and your child can fill in their own name, color their pictures their own way, and live in the story for themselves. I encourage you to pick up both the book and the coloring book and use them together.